Welcome back, everybody, to the DomCast, episode 11, and I'll go ahead and get this out of the way now. I was thinking maybe it would be this week, but next week I should actually have a co-host on here. Me and my friends, when we were in college, we often talked about doing a podcast. It was always the thing we brought up once they knew what I did, and they were always very knowledgeable on basketball. They were people who knew what they were talking about, and it was always fun to talk hoops with them. So to make this more like a podcast, hopefully next week, that's what I'm aiming for, I'll actually have someone with me here, and it'll be more like a discussion type thing, but it'll still involve some of you guys' questions, so still follow me on Instagram, because I'll probably put the questionnaire out there. It's just that we'll probably have some of our own topics too, and yeah, that should be fun. Anyways, that is not happening this week. This week I have questions as usual, and now we are, well, yeah, by the time this video comes out, because it will be tomorrow, I believe, we should be in the second round of the playoffs. The only round we have left is the Spurs and Nuggets, which was the most predictable 7-game series in history. I said the Nuggets were going to win in 6, and Jokic went off last game. I sensed that there was a chance for that to happen, but now we are in the end game. 7-game series. Spurs have not been a great road team, and they've got to be kicking themselves because this series could have been over. They were up by like 20 points in game 2. Everyone thought the Nuggets were definitely pretenders back then, so that was a good chance to really make them question themselves and go to San Antonio with a 2-0 lead. So this could have been over by now. So if they lose this series, it will definitely sting San Antonio fans. But I will say I have gained more respect for the Nuggets. Before these playoffs, I really did not respect them much. I was looking at them as like a 2015 Hawks type thing, and they're definitely better than that. Jokic is better than any player the 2015 Hawks had. They got shooters, they got multiple pieces, and if the Warriors were not around, I would say, like, even if the Warriors get beat, right, if they do get beat in the second round, the Nuggets have a chance to get to the finals, so if they do beat the Spurs. So I've definitely gained a more respect for them. I have more respect for Denver, period. Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and get into answering some of you guys' questions. Let's do a Pistons question. We never really talk about the Pistons. Jamie is asking, should the Pistons just trade Blake Griffin and Andre Drummond and rebuild, or should they try to contend? Well, under no circumstance do I think they're going to trade both of them. If they did trade one, it would be something like Blake requesting a trade, but I don't think they're going to trade both because, well, first off, you have to look at, they just made the playoffs, so that's a step in the right direction. I think a lot of people would be looking at them crazy right now if they traded their 2 corner pieces. But then there is also the fact that, yes, this is kind of no man's land because no free agent, no really valuable free agent is really going to Detroit. They're never even in the running for it. So you do kind of wonder, is this really serving them? But you have to remember that franchises are businesses, and sometimes a franchise is, yes, they're looking at winning, but they're also looking at things like ticket sales and whatnot. And when you have a star player that you actually traded for, like Blake Griffin, not every owner is super aggressive and like, yeah, let's go ahead and do whatever it takes to make sure we're contending in a few years. Sometimes they'll be content to sell tickets. And yeah, Blake is a ticket seller, so unless he wants to be traded or he's trying to force a trade, I doubt that would happen. I doubt they would purposely tank because they're already not that great. Yeah, those two things I just don't see happening. From a basketball standpoint though, yeah, I do wonder like what the plan is for them, where they're gonna go from here. Cause it really does seem like there's just certain teams out there that never have, like, you don't ever hear about a free agent wanting to go to Detroit or any of these other teams, you know, smaller market teams. And for them, it really does seem like their only hope is the NBA draft, right? Like, they just got to hit the lottery, basically. So yeah, I can see where you're coming from, but no, I don't think either of those are gonna happen, especially right after making the playoffs. I just don't see it. Next question is asking, whose legacy will be most impacted by the second round in the East? And honestly, I think there's only 2 players whose legacy is impacted, obviously. It's the, okay, well, my bad. Second round in the East, so that's the Celtics, Bucks, and the Sixers and the Raptors. But yeah, still, in terms of like legacy, I would still think the only players you're really looking at is Kyrie and Giannis because, well, here's why. Giannis he's probably going on to be the MVP. We kind of got that vibe that he's got the MVP votes. He's going to take it over Harden. So if he went out in the second round after winning MVP and leading the Bucks to this 60-win record, of course he will start taking that moniker of, oh, he was great in the regular season, but he collapsed in the playoffs especially because of who their opponent is, right? They're playing the Celtics for the second time, and last year they didn't have Kyrie or Hayward, so that was a time where people thought Giannis was going to need to take that team past them. A lot of people saw the Bucks beating the Celtics, and of course, I think the Celtics were a lot better than any of us could have predicted without both of their star players. But still, it would not be a good look to come back and lose again after they've been so much better than them as a team overall this entire season. and when they're missing one of their best defenders in Marcus Smart. So Giannis has a lot to lose in this series. And I also named Kyrie because Kyrie willingly chose to want to do his own thing. He has said that he wanted to do his own thing. That was the whole point of being apart from LeBron James, and now he's got his own team. They underachieved during the regular season, but at least during the playoffs so far, they have lived up to expectations because they got here. People were saying that, oh, because of what happened in the season, they're going to struggle with the Pacers, and that did not happen. Of course, the sweep was closer than it appeared. A lot of the games were close, but they took care of what they were supposed to do, right? There was a lot of series out here that was supposed to be sweeps, and they weren't. The Rockets could have swept the Jazz. They didn't. The Clippers took the Golden State Warriors 6, which is like the most unexpected 6-game series ever. By the way the Sixers and Nets series turned out, we can say the Nets probably should have been swept. Same thing with the Magic. So now the Celtics are expected to lose against the Bucks, but even though they're expected to lose, I still feel like people are going to kind of pile on Kyrie and say that, well, this is his first time in the playoffs with the Celtics. So I feel like people, just because of how he ended up on the Celtics and the things that he said, I feel like people will kind of get on him a little bit. But then on the other side, like, I don't really know where you see legacy. So for the Sixers, Ben Simmons and Embiid are way too young to really be having that legacy conversation. They haven't really accomplished a whole lot or been expected to accomplish a whole lot. I don't think there's really like legacy on the line for them at the moment. And then with the Raptors, because Kawhi Leonard is just so quiet and just goes about his business, I don't really know what's on the line for him either. He's already kind of a proven player, the finals MVP, the championship, defensive player of the year and all that. Overall, I think if the Raptors were to somehow lose to the Sixers in the second round, because I don't see that happening, I think people would be talking about they would be talking about the Raptors as a team, because the whole joke now is it's a stereotype with the Raptors that they always collapse in the playoffs, and of course we know about playoff Lowry. So if they were to lose, yeah, I think it would be more talking about the team and joking about the team. I don't know. I don't see people really going in on Kawhi Leonard unless he just severely underperforms, and Kawhi Leonard doesn't do a whole lot of that. And like I said, he's just super quiet. He's never in the media. There's no controversy surrounding him. With all the legacy players you can think about, there's always kind of something surrounding them. They hype themselves a bit, like, you know, Giannis likes to mean mug and everything, and he said a couple things in the media before. So I don't know. I don't think there's a whole lot on the line over there unless Kawhi Leonard just collapses, unless he just totally collapses. And again, he seems like he always goes to work. So that's my answer to that question. Of course, we got another Kevin Durant free agency question. It's asking who has the best chance of landing KD, and the only reason I include these questions all the time or in every other podcast is just because it kind of changes as time goes on. The way teams are performing, certain things that happen in the league kind of alter this answer a little bit, and it's changed throughout the year. Like at the beginning, I used to think that maybe the Lakers had a really good chance, but he made that toxic comment, the Lakers are in turmoil, and then I really thought about like what would they do for his legacy to just go play with LeBron after the Warriors. So this is something that just keeps evolving. So the reason I took it this week is because it kind of changed a bit. You know, last time I probably talked about it, I was saying more like the Knicks, but KD could really come out good if he just, let's just say he cares about his legacy and he wanted to leave the Warriors. He could come out real nice by going somewhere like Brooklyn or the Clippers, because those are teams that they're not loaded with stars or anything. They're not already built. They're an up and coming team. So that's a great place for him to go. Those are good teams. So like with the Knicks, it was always understood if any star goes there, it's probably because another star is coming, because they've got 2 max slots. So that's what's up with them. But then you got teams like the Nets who already have good pieces. They competed well, even though they lost in 5 games. For a lot of those games, they competed well, and you can see that the groundwork is there. And then the Clippers, you got a good coach there. They took the Warriors 6. Like, that's a win for the Clippers. Just because getting their stock up to be able to convince a free agent to come this summer, you could say they're a stable organization. They got rid of their trash owner years ago. The culture has totally changed. They play hard. They've got good bench players. Like, there's something that you can go build there now, and possibly even get another star to go there too. So yeah, to be honest with you, I think the Clippers and Nets are 2 really good destinations. But again, that is all up to if KD even wants to take that challenge. Maybe he doesn't, and maybe he just wants to win easily in Golden State for the next 5 years. I don't know. So we will see with that. But that is my update on the KD sweepstakes. Speaking of that, I guess this is probably related. Beantown Kid is asking which team has the most to lose as of right now in the playoffs. So I guess we were just talking about the player with, what can go on with their legacy. But as far as a team that has the most to lose, I don't know anybody that has more to lose than the Warriors. And here's why. Their second round matchup for the first time in a long time is really, really tough. So normally they can kind of coast to the conference finals. But this year, you're playing the team that probably you should see in the conference finals in the second round. You just went 6 games, and I heard something about like Steph Curry's ankle. Is he not totally right now? So you've let that series drag on, which that's why you don't ever want a series to drag on, even if you're 100% sure that you're not going to lose it. I was 100% sure the Warriors were not going to lose to the Clippers, but it's dragged on now, and you have a really tough series against a team that's had a couple of days of rest. They might get got this year. Now, the problem is, especially if the Warriors lose in the second round, they have a that opens the door for Kevin Durant to leave. You know, on one hand, you think, okay, if they lose in the second round, will KD feel like he's just running if he leaves and they lost? Or is it going to have the opposite effect where they've lost now and their morale already hasn't been great this whole year anyway? So does that push him out of the door? If they lose this early, I think they would really be in a prime position to lose Kevin Durant. And the Warriors as a team don't want to lose him. They want to keep that guy at all costs. I'm pretty sure we all know that. Whatever it takes with the money, whatever they got to do with the roster, they want to hold on to this power as long as they can. So definitely the Warriors. I honestly think next in line would probably be the Celtics. I think they come next in line just because if they lose in the second round and they lose badly, it becomes kind of difficult to, or not difficult, it just becomes harder to retain Kyrie Irving. Kyrie will be a free agent. This was already a tough season as is, so if they're not even competitive, like if they lose in 5 games, I'm going to get kind of anxious as a Celtics fan myself. And then after that, for everybody else, losing is kind of just losing. If Harden loses, people are going to say the same thing they always say. They're going to say that he performs well in the regular season. And if he plays bad and they lose, then of course, you know, we're going to go down the same road we kind of go down every year. It's not a whole lot new there. But no, I think the Celtics and Warriors both actually have they actually have assets on the line in these playoffs. That's what I believe. Oh, my bad. My bad. The Raptors are right there probably tied with the Celtics because if they lose, especially if it was the second round, and if they don't make it to the finals, who knows what's going to happen with Kawhi Leonard? As far as I'm concerned, we don't really have any hints with what he wants to do or where he wants to go. Of course, there's always the LA thing floating out there, but that floats around for so many players. Who knows? But yeah, a premature loss would be devastating for them because they bet so much on him by trading DeRozan for him. So it would be devastating to have anything like really bad happen that makes him think he could go be better somewhere else. So they're right up there with the Celtics and possibly, I'm sorry, yeah, this seems like I'm changing my answer now. They might actually have the most to lose because when you think about, like I just said, what they did to get Kawhi Leonard, they didn't have to trade DeRozan. They didn't have to do any of that. They went ahead and like traded stability for a very great player, but it was still with the understanding that this may be a rental. So if they lost Kawhi, they kind of have to like start over. They've got a good piece with Pascal Siakam, but they're not going to go a whole lot farther without Kawhi Leonard. They're going to have to get that star player, and that's always very hard, especially in a place like Toronto where free agents have never been known to go. That would be devastating. So with the Warriors, yeah, you could lose KD and you lose your grip on this crazy amount of power that you've accumulated over these last few years, but you still have Steph Curry and you probably still have Klay Thompson even if KD does leave. So, and then Draymond Green is there, so you can kind of just retool and still be right in the thick of things. But it seemed like the Raptors, they will fall very far without Kawhi Leonard. Like even with the Celtics, if they lost Kyrie, I still believe Anthony Davis or Danny Ainge is going to go after Anthony Davis one way or the other. And they still have good pieces. They've already proven that they can be good without Kyrie. So that's a thing there. But yeah, after trading your star player for Kawhi Leonard and for Kawhi Leonard to leave, that would be very damaging. So they very much have a lot on the line. And then aside from the talk about like James Harden or whatever, the Rockets, yeah, they paid Chris Paul a lot of money and he's getting older. So if they ever want to win, they really want to try to do it now. So I guess in that way, there's a lot on the line for them too. Harden is just going to do more and more as Chris Paul gets older because he missed a lot of games this year anyways. But I think we can all agree having Chris Paul on that team is what really takes them from just a really good team with Harden to a team that can actually contend from year to year. So you're kind of running out of time to use him. He got hurt last year. Cross your fingers and hope that doesn't happen this year. But of course, Father Time, it's progressive, so they kind of want to move too. This next question is good because I just got done recording a video for my main channel for the Oklahoma City Thunder, and he's asking what OKC's future after losing to Portland is, and that is something that I kind of mentioned at the end of that video, so I can just go right into where I left off. Yeah, their future is very questionable because me and my friends have been talking about it. I did a couple of videos about Westbrook when they were losing on my second channel last week, and The thing we were saying was that Westbrook is basically 30 years old now. He did just do a press conference. Since the last time I've talked about him, he had his press conference and he talked about, he mentioned kind of in a salty way, but he mentioned becoming a better shooter and things like that. So that's good to see that he is trying to improve. But yeah, I do wonder about their future just because there's so many different dynamics at play here. First of all, immediately, trades are never out of the question in any franchise. So you do start to think after so many years of failure with Westbrook, would OKC ever trade him? But then of course you start to think about things like, first of all, that is Oklahoma City. Again, not a whole lot of free agents go there. This is your star guy, sells tickets. And then Westbrook is on a really expensive contract that still has like 4 years on it. So it'd be really hard for any team to make a move for him. And then also doing something like trading Westbrook would really anger Paul George, who kind of only signed with the Thunder or re-signed with him because he liked Westbrook so much. And he wanted to accomplish something there with him. So, they have a good relationship when Paul George had wanted to play with the Lakers forever now. And then LeBron was there, but he chose to stay in Oklahoma. So yeah, that says a lot. So trading him is anytime soon, that's probably off the table. But the only reason I even bring that up is I'm not just trying to be impulsive and say, oh, just get rid of Westbrook. I'm just saying down the road, what's going to happen here, because is his game going to change at all in a way where he's going to be able to take your team to a title as the point guard? Because by now, his decision making and some of the same mistakes he makes every season have been going on for so long. Like when they were younger, you would just say, oh, he's still growing. This is going to change, blah, blah, blah. Okay, we're in 2019. A lot of this stuff hasn't happened yet. So are you going to get a coach that can control Westbrook? Because I don't know who's out there. I don't know if Larry Brown is coaching anymore, but that's who they got for Iverson, and that resulted in an NBA Finals, and he won MVP. But this is one of those parts where some people think that coaching doesn't matter. This is one of those parts where it matters, because the fact that you see Westbrook making the same mistakes for so long, if he had a coach like Larry Brown was for Iverson to tell him this is how we should be playing and to try to work within both of their different philosophies, that would probably work out better for the team. I think at this point, it's pretty clear that he's not getting that coaching from Billy Donovan, probably wasn't getting it from Scott Brooks, because they're just the same mistakes all the time, year after year. They keep happening. The poor shot selection is just always there. That's a matter of coaching. This is your superstar. Sit him down. You got to tell him. And I even feel stronger about that after hearing his press conference, because he just had this press conference, I guess yesterday, and he was talking about improving shooting, but I said that he said it in a salty way because it was kind of a way where he was talking about what he's criticized for. So he was like, yeah, I'm going to go work on shooting. Then next year, they're probably going to get on me about the size of my feet or whatever. So it seemed like he was taking it in a way where he thinks it's like unfair criticism, or that just people are always looking for things to criticize him about. But at this point, it's things that are costing his team that he's being criticized about that just need to change. So the fact that he has that kind of attitude towards it, I mean, respect and wanting to get better for shooting, I guess, but it didn't really seem like he's taking it that well. And that's how I assume it's probably gone for any coach that's tried to get him to change as well. So more or less, OKC is in a rock and a hard place because they haven't even gotten close. Like, there's been no progression. So my bad. This season, there was a little bit of progression, despite Westbrook still, having some of the same bad habits. He at least let Paul George take the front seat this year. So while Paul George, before his shoulder just went crazy, he was an MVP candidate. And that's the way it's got to be. If Westbrook has another star next to him, that guy has to be the lead guy. But here's what I think, though. And this is something I said a long time ago. Maybe you just don't want Westbrook as your point guard. And I said that a really long time ago, but I know he's a little bit shorter than you want a shooting guard to be, but would they not be better if they let somebody who can actually control the team as a point guard play point guard and let Russ play the two? Especially if he's actually going to work on his shooting. Now, this is a little bit late for a change like that. Again, he's been playing one way for so long that maybe that's a little bit difficult, but at what point, if you're OKC, do you accept that this is not my championship point guard? So like, I always had a dream of like a Chris Paul type point guard. Of course, there's only so many Chris Pauls, but I'm saying, like, what if I would have thought it would have been great if like Chris Paul was playing with Westbrook one time. So like a Chris Paul at the point, Westbrook at the two, and just let him be a shooting guard, because he has shooting guard traits, but it affects how he plays point guard. See, that's the difference between like him and Steph Curry. So Steph Curry has shooting guard traits, but he gives you the best traits of a shooting guard and the best traits of a point guard. Westbrook at times has great shooting guard traits, but then it really affects how good of a point guard he is. So maybe going forward, if you're OKC, you make that adjustment. You get an actual point guard, or let Dennis Schroeder run the point. Why don't you do that? Let him run the point. Let Westbrook run the two. I just think you got to make something up, because at this point, I've started to accept that that's not going to happen. Him being a championship point guard, him leading OKC to a championship as a point guard, I don't see it. Oh, this is an interesting one. It says, if you could change the career of one NBA player for better or worse, who would it be and why? Wow, I just got conflicted here because I had an answer and then it changed as I sat back. It'd be between Tracy McGrady and Derrick Rose. Both have been my favorite player at a point. Wow. I actually think, even though T-Mac is my favorite player of all time, I would go Derrick Rose. You know why? Because a couple of weeks ago, I watched his documentary about, everything from him being from Chicago and everything that he went through. And then it goes into his NBA career. It would be his career because it goes a little bit deeper than basketball for him. I saw that scene where he was crying because he was traded to New York. And I had never realized, I always knew he was from Chicago. You always heard that, right? What were the chances of Chicago being able to draft a kid from Chicago? But after watching that documentary, you get an even better perspective. You get a new perspective about this kid that really had an opportunity to do something great for his city and how bad he wanted it. So it would be Derrick Rose because, and even think about it now, again, I said this in my video that I just made for the main channel. There's things that happen in the NBA that don't seem as far away as they really are, but he tore his ACL now 7 whole years ago. It just went like that. And when you think in terms of what if he just had 7 years to just grow on what he already was in 2011, if he had that, he would still be one of the best players in the NBA today, probably even have another MVP. Would have been contending for years by now, would have made the Eastern Conference much more entertaining when LeBron had his death grip on it. There's just so many beautiful outcomes, I think, that would have happened from Derrick Rose being healthy and be able to be Chicago's superstar for all that time. Probably have to change his career for better. T-Mac was my close second, but I think Rose's story is much worse, because he just keeps getting injured. Every single season, he has some kind of injury. Even at the end of this year, it was the elbow. He had some chip in his elbow. I was like, where does that come from? All his injuries have been below the hip, and now he has a chipped elbow. Is that a real thing, or did they just want to tank? I don't know. But it seems like there's always something season ending for him. So he's got one of the most cruel existences in NBA history. And yeah, it would probably have to be Rose for me. Back to this year's playoffs. Jag is asking, after watching the Clippers series, how big of a threat are the Rockets? And yeah, this is just, you read my mind. This just came straight from my mind. Me and my dad were even talking about this in the car yesterday, and I was telling him that if there was ever a year that the Warriors were going to got, this is it. Because now they're actually looking vulnerable, whereas you guys have watched the last few years, right? Haven't the Warriors always looked like this just shiny suit of armor that just has no chinks in it? It's looked like that every single year so far, where they only lose a couple of games in the playoffs. This year, right off the bat, they get to the first round and they lose 2 against a roster that they normally dominate. I even posted the stat on Twitter. I think since 2014 Christmas, they had a 16-2 record against the Clippers, and then they get to the playoffs and lose 2 home games against them. One of them was more of a freak of nature, but then they just lost pretty steadily. That second one, Kevin Durant had a good game, Klay Thompson put up numbers, and they just lost. So amongst other things, when you think about it from the perspective of this being their 5th championship run, where they're trying to go win a championship, not saying they've won 5, but yeah, this is their 5th time trying to go to the NBA Finals, their 3rd time with Kevin Durant. No matter how elite a team looks from the outside, because that's all we see, right? All we see is just the majestic basketball and shooting that they have, but that probably gets tiring. They're still regular people, still regular basketball players, and things happen. I'll never forget about Dwayne Wade talking about, the things that we don't see. So with the 2014 Heat, that was their 4th time going to the finals, and he was just talking about how things seem bland, the team being together, the jokes just weren't funny anymore. Things wear off that kind of affect them on the court that we don't really see as much. So with the Warriors, this is their 5th time. That's a really long time to be on top. And now the reason I was telling my dad, I really think this could be the year, if there ever was going to be one, is because their path. Look at their path. Normally their path never includes any kind of challenge until the conference finals or the finals. Normally they just kind of get to coast into that. And this year there is no coasting to the conference finals. They've played 6 games and now you just run smack dab into the Rockets. And the Rockets want blood. After the way they lost last year, they want blood. Hell, this probably even means more to the Rockets than it means to the Warriors. If the Warriors lose, they go get hungry again this summer. If the Rockets lose, this is just an unimaginable pain because, especially for James Harden, he's done everything you can even do in the regular season now. he wants to cap it off. So yeah, to answer your question, watching the Clippers series did change my opinion. Because, well, okay, it didn't change my opinion. I still think I just always operate under the assumption that you got KD out here feasting because he put up numbers in that Clippers series. Always operate under the assumption that they could get hot at any moment and the championship will just be theirs. But it did at least kind of move me a little bit closer to where I'm like, if they lost this year, I wouldn't be as surprised as I would in, say, 2017 or last year. This year is definitely more doable. Now, if they get past the Rockets, I don't see them losing. I'm just going to say it. I only think just, again, because of the placing of it being in the second round, I think that's why it's such a good opportunity. But if they beat the Rockets and now they're in the conference finals playing like the Blazers or the Nuggets, who they just kind of wiped the floor with in the regular season, yeah, then it's just kind of, whatever. It was a good try, but who knows? Second round, I am hyped. I am really hyped to watch this. And to wrap up the show, let's just go with something random. Antonis is asking Dirk Nowitzki or Kevin Garnett to start a franchise with. I figured I'd answer this since Dirk Nowitzki just retired. But maybe to your surprises, I would probably go Kevin Garnett. I mean, you couldn't go wrong. Both of these are all-time power forwards, but I think people might get a little bit blinded by the fact that Kevin Garnett really didn't win much until he got to the Boston Celtics. But if you watch my video on how the Timberwolves lost Kevin Garnett, it was really kind of his loyalty to the Wolves was pretty much the same as Damian Lillard to the Blazers, and so it was almost to a fault. And even though management was handling his entire supporting cast terribly up to the time they had to trade him, he stayed, and it was even hard for him to want to go. He didn't even want to go. So you kind of think, okay, well, what if Kevin Garnett was able to start with a team like the Mavericks, who they just had great foresight from the time they drafted Nowitzki? Because did you guys see my Dirk Nowitzki draft video? And there I was talking about how Don Nelson put it together where they got Steve Nash and Dirk in the same night. Like, he swung that whole deal to steal both of those guys in the same night. So in contrast, Kevin Garnett on the Wolves, they traded Ray Allen on draft night for Stephon Marbury. Wasn't a terrible deal, but the way it turned out, Stephon was so motivated by money that he ended up requesting a trade. So what if KG was able to start his career, because that was really kind of at the beginning of KG's career or in the first few years. What if he was able to start with Ray Allen and they just built for a while, the way that Dirk Nowitzki first started with Steve Nash? And then, yeah, I also like the fact that KG could give you explosive offense in the way Dirk could, but he could also play elite defense as well. Dirk was not known for defense. KG's intensity, he's just a unique player. You don't really get players like him that are just psychotic. And yeah, I loved KG when we had him on Boston. The intensity that he had, that was just so much fun to watch. So I would go with KG, but you're not really going wrong if you go with Dirk. Whatever. I could flip a coin and I would be happy either way. But just so I'm actually picking and taking a stance, I'll take KG. Anyways, that will be all for today. Happy second round of the playoffs. This is what I've been waiting for months, because the second round, you kind of knew what the matchups were going to be for the most part, 90%, and now they're here. And man, I hope that it's not just a bunch of quick 5-game series, disappointing series. I hope these go the distance. And yeah, it should be fun, especially the Rockets and Warriors. So hit the like button, comment, and sub if you enjoyed, and hit the bell next to the channel name if you want notifications when I drop this series every single Saturday or Sunday. And again, next week I should have my friend on. It'll probably end up eventually being 3 of us. This is just a friend group that I was always talking basketball with in college, and those are some very bright memories. We still do it even today. Whenever I say I was talking to a friend, these are normally who I'm talking about. So that'll be fun. It'll probably just start off as us just our voice. I don't think we're gonna get on camera maybe until a few weeks down the road, until we figure some more things out, figure out how to actually podcast together, because I'm very used to doing this alone. So yeah, hopefully we will be able to make that materialize next week. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you all on the next one.